Guten Abend und Om Namah Shivaya. Willkommen zum Abendtalk, Gespräch miteinander. Wir haben schon einige Vorträge gehört. Es gab schon direkt danach Fragen und Antworten. Und da wurde ja auch darauf verwiesen, dass wir da heute Abend etwas mehr drüber sprechen können. Und aus meiner Sicht, ich bin ja kein Indologe, komme auch nicht aus Akademia, sondern zum Yoga gehört irgendwo so eine gewisse Mystik dazu. Da gehört dazu, dass man irgendwo in eine mythologische Geschichte eindringt. Und so ist das immer so etwas zwiespältig, wenn wir viel hören über wie es wirklich war. Nimmt das etwas von der Bhakti weg? Nimmt es etwas von dieser feinstofflichen Erfahrung weg? Andererseits ist es oft gut, etwas zu hören, wie es höchstwahrscheinlich gewesen ist. Manche Mythen sind ja auch nicht nur hilfreich, sondern führen in eine falsche Richtung. Und das ist ein wichtiges Thema von meinem Standpunkt aus. Wie können ja letztlich diese indologischen Erkenntnisse in die Yoga-Praxis integriert werden, ohne dass dabei so ein bisschen Mythologie und Mystik aus dem Yoga weggenommen wird? Ja, ich gebe weiter an Corinne.
Yeah, guten Abend and good evening. I'm now going to switch to English.
Maybe I should say something in English. I was maybe in very short. Excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
I was supposed to speak in English. Huh? Yeah, from my point of view, I'm a yoga practitioner, yoga teacher, and sometimes the question arises whether research how the history of yoga was, how it really developed, and will something of the mythology be taken away from it? Would maybe the bhakti be reduced? And how can one integrate this intellectual knowledge and this knowledge into the yoga practice that it will help? That's a question I have.
Okay, and I wanted to give a short statement on the difficulty of not the difficulty. Basically, I heard of people saying that they were scholar practitioners, which means scholars and practitioners at the same time. And as for me, I told you this afternoon that I have been a yoga practitioner. I have done yoga teacher training, and I do practice yoga regularly. But if I decide to have a look at yoga from the outside, as somebody who is doing research on it, who is taking into account only the facts that count, and this is what we have to do in science, then I'm just solemnly a researcher, just a scholar, and not a practitioner in that moment. So for myself, it has always been very important to have a look at myself and see which hat I'm wearing on my head. Is it the scholar? Is it the scholarly side? Am I looking at a subject from the outside? Or is it the practitioner side? Am I in the inside? Am I practicing? Am I in a totally different state of mind in that moment? And I found it easier for myself to separate the two things and let them complement each other. And I know that the study of yoga from the outside, the study of the text, the study of the language in a more scientific way, has also influenced my practice. It has made the practice a little more structured, and also filled it with how can I say? I felt more secure because I felt that the background kind of lifted me. It made me more free from assumptions. But that's just the short statement that I can add. That's my 2 cents to that subject. Let them complement each other, and be careful when you mix. Be careful what is set on the head or on the head you're wearing at that moment. Okay, and I'm now going to throw the ball over to Vedamuti.
Maybe Philip first.
So I would maybe first of all like to take up the question that Sukadev had asked, namely whether scholarship does not reduce the amount of attractiveness that practice may have. And I think that maybe also the opposite could be the case, namely that by practicing, I commit myself to something with a certain aim. And I think it's required to support this activity by a theoretical knowledge of what I'm doing for which purpose. So what can I reach? What is the aim of my practice? How is my practice related to the practice of other people that came before me in my own tradition, and also maybe in the long tradition in the history of yoga? And I think that a well-informed practice may be superior to a practice that, so to say, stands on weak feet, where in the case of encountering arguments against what I'm doing, I then feel insecure. So I think that the amount of information that one can receive from scholarship for one's practice may actually support the practice. And that is something that we, of course, see in pre-modern times. Indian philosophers who taught theories of what perception is, how knowledge can be gained, epistemology. That was a huge topic in Indian philosophy by people that actually also were engaged in a certain spiritual practice. Then debate with knowledgeable people is also frequently recommended as one of the aims to get more security in the practice that one is actually executing, also for spiritual development or other practices that one may pursue. So I think that that's an important point, and I think that rationality can be used in such a way that it supports, and that it helps to get more clarity, to remove error, and to actually help one also with regards to one's spiritual development. That at least is not only my own opinion, but something that we can find very well attested in pre-modern South Asian sources. And that's it. How are we with Vedamurti? Is he still with us? Have we solved the technical problems?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you now. So I would then ask you for an initial statement.
Yeah. So my background is an academic one from business economics, and for 15 years now I teach yoga and yoga teachers training, and so I know that both things are important. Yeah, it's important to have good knowledge about the scriptures, to understand, and also to stay open to learn, new knowledge about the scripture. But on the other hand, for example, yesterday, I had to teach some yama, to the group, 20 people in the group, some online, and so and I did it with meditation and some talk about it. But the people, they want to understand it, and they have only differing capacities to understand, and so there is necessary to bridge some gap. So it's important to have academic knowledge. That I agree. But it's also important to understand the people. Where are they? What do they need? And most of them, they want to grow. They want to get rid of suffering. Yeah, they want to get rid of limitations. That's very human, and it's our duty to help them with that. Yeah, so many things are important, and so. But I would say it's very important what we do, to integrate these things. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Vedamurti, and I would now open the floor for further contributions in this regard to our colleagues, our co-presenters, whether they would like to share their views on this topic, and by raising their hand or their virtual hand. And I could also invite the general audience to participate in this discussion. Yeah, I already see Niels is there. So
yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I find this a very important and interesting question and discussion. Maybe I want to share here my personal experience with it. I'm also a yoga practitioner and a yoga teacher. Just until recently, I was running also a yoga studio. Then I suddenly realized that writing a dissertation, working in a research project, and running a yoga studio with a family and 2 kids is a little bit too much at once. So I had to make some cuttings. And in my personal experience as a yoga practitioner and in my path to becoming a yoga scholar over the last decade, for me, this encounter with Indological material and the study of the yoga text and closer text critical study was overwhelmingly enriching for my, not just for my understanding of the history, but also for my practice. And I'm super excited, for example, for the outputs of the Hatha Yoga project. When I think, for example, on the Hatha Abhyasa Paddhati, this text, which might have been or was probably very influential on Krishnamacharya's teaching, just recalling this Ashtanga Vinyasa system promoted by Patabi Joyce, and then seeing those historical origins and other practices, other postures, rope postures, another amazing things, this whole discussion and highlighting of embodied philology in the last years. For me, this was really inspiring, and I can't wait as a practitioner of physical yoga too for this to come out. And I think those contributions, like new editions of texts that have been just recently uncovered, they will surely inspire and influence how yoga will be practiced in the future, and inspire the yoga world. Also, when I just think of the possibility to now have access to the Amrita Siddhi, this very root text of the foundational practices of Hatha Yoga, especially this Mahamudra, Mahabandha, and Mahaveda. Before this was researched so intensely, it was not clear at all that originally those practices seem to have also were practiced by tantric Buddhists. And before we were thinking this was actually a Shaiva text, and also it shed so much light on teachings that we already knew from the Hatha Pradipika, for example, which was very popular texts in the last decades for so many practitioners, also taught in yoga teacher trainings, where those practices originally stemming from the Amrita Siddhi are by far not so explained in detail as we find it then in the Amrita City and in such a coherent system. So I find those new discoveries so massively important. And one of those things that fascinated me in the early years of my study, actually, Philip, your work on your critical edition on the Patanjala Yoga Shastra was the subject of my BA thesis, and I used it. Probably most of the audience here knows, but Philip found out that the Yoga Sutra, so the single sutras, were never a separate entity from the Bhashya, the Vyasa Bhashya originally. So if you would really want to understand how Patanjali meant the sutras, you would have to look at the Bhashya, and this changed our understanding so tremendously, and it ruled out so many crazy interpretations of the sutras by modern scholars, and so I see a very great benefit by our work that we're doing here to get more clarity about the history and everything. Yeah, thank you. I think that's my statement for now.
Thank you very much, Niels. I think we don't have to convert you to philology and Indological studies. It's clear that you are very enthusiastic about this, and that's good and that's nice, and that's also maybe infectious for, if I may use this word, for other people to look into serious scholarship and maybe also discover this path as an enrichment of their own way of living. And definitely there is need and a lot of scope in pre-modern Southern Asian studies for people to participate. This is one of the things that I just want to briefly mention. Whatever you look at in South Asian studies, there's scope for new discoveries. There's so much material that nobody ever has worked upon that it's not really difficult to discover new insights, and that makes this academic subject so rewarding for me. But I don't want to propagate anymore my field of research, but I prefer to use the time to get some of our participants make a statement here. So I think Shirin was next.
Me?
Yes, there you are.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you all for organizing this. I'd like to go back to the question of wearing two hats and the distinction between, well, knowledge or academic knowledge and spiritual practice or religion and belief, because it's not only, as far as I can see, in a subject in terms of yoga, but recently also in terms of believing or not believing in a virus, for example, or all this sort of thing. And what I would be interested in is how you, I mean, I think also, these two areas can inform each other, but on the other hand, keeping the two heads separately, I would like to know more about it, because I was actually quite shocked. I don't know what it's like in other countries, that in the German yoga scene, that there's a lot of, how can I say, a bit of skepticism about academic knowledge. And it shocks me in the situation we're in now, and it goes far beyond yoga. So if somebody can help me out, that would be nice. Thank you.
Yes, I think that's an important question that you raise here. And how can one wear two hats with a single head? And maybe Corinna would like to answer this question.
Okay, so what I wanted to say is that, of course, I need to be aware of, I cannot practice yoga when I'm too much in my head, now just in the head, because yoga is something that is related also to my personal emotions and feelings that I learn to control, that I learn to discover. That's a very personal thing. Practice is a personal thing that I cannot measure into conditions that everybody else has the same measures, because somebody who is opposite me and doing something opposite, he has maybe different feelings, different emotions, and I cannot measure him by my own measures. That's something that I need to understand. But when I discuss something on a scientific level, I can, because then we first of all need to consent on the measures that we are going to apply on our discussion, and then we can have an exchange on this. And this is something that I feel is missing in the discussion, in political and society discussions that we are dealing with in Germany right now, and I'm sure in many other parts of the world as well. That people forget that you need to have a common basis that everybody agrees on before you can go into a discussion, because then if not, you won't find anything in common that you can agree upon. It's very, 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 very important to have this basis. And this basis needs to be scientific, because that's the only way. It needs to be evidence-based and not emotion-based. That's the only way we can find a discussion. We can start from that. And then everybody can chip in and share their own experiences. And then it will enrich the discussion. But it will not work. This will not work if we don't have the evidence-based foundation that we all need to agree upon. And I have had a lot of discussions in diverse social media and so on, especially when it came to the virus situation and things related to this. And I will not discuss anymore if I do not have the common grounds, the common basis of science that we can start with. And I'm not ready to accept a different opinion that does not share this common ground. I'm ready to accept any emotion, any fear, anything of insecurity. I do have my own insecurities, my own fears, and my own things. I really understand that. But it needs to be clear that the basis of our discussion needs to be a common ground, and this can only be evidence-based.
Yeah. Thank you, Corinna. Shirin, would you?
For the question, Shirin. Thank you.
Do we have a brief follow-up? Because I would also like to continue a little bit and give Jens the chance to ask a question.
Yes, we can extend our time here.
Okay.
It's a very quick one. Would you say, or would you say that there is a stronger skepticism towards academic or scientific knowledge in the yoga community than in any other sort of physical practice areas? Because it's very strange. You have all these systems which are very logical and all of that. And I'm just wondering if I'm wrong, but what I observed over the last 1.5 years is actually, to me, quite shocking. Probably I'm wrong. That's the only question.
It depends probably where you are. No? The yoga community is probably huge and diverse, also with regard to their approach to reason. And the experiences that I made at the Yoga and Transformation Conference in Vienna, where hundreds of people came to discuss research and to get informed about research, that was absolutely knowledge-based and rational. But I also have made other experience, and if you say that you compare the yogic communities to other people who are practicing physical exercise, then there are probably cultural differences. Yes, yes, that can be shocking, of course. And I may maybe use this opportunity to just for 1 second misuse my time in order to ask of the people, if you are not vaccinated, do it. Yeah, it's good for you and it's good for your community. It's absolutely important. It helps us further. It helps avoid things that we have now experienced, that we have to move online instead of being able to meet physically. And of course, much severe catastrophes has happened, and there is an easy way to avoid this simply by getting vaccinated. But that, of course, is only a side topic of what we wanted to discuss, namely practice and theory, scholarship. And now, please, Jens, ask your question.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jens Augsburger. I'm a doctoral researcher at SOAS, and I'm researching modern yoga movements. I find it very interesting, the question of how science and practice can kind of create some sort of fruitful union. The thing that I'm worried about, though, or what I'm wondering about, is that when we talk about the union of practice and science or scholarship or academy, Indology in that case, it's a very, we'll take it as a given that it's there, and it's a bit uncritical, whereas I think that what we have a problem here, and maybe also in this conference, is that we need to address what both the academy and also practice need to address, which is how can we actually decolonize what we're talking about, and how what kind of approaches do we have there? Is it fruitful to have that union between scholarship and practice? Whereas I think it's very important for academy also to stay critical and to even criticize what practitioners are doing. So I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts about that. I think it's really about Indology as a discipline on the one hand, on the other hand about practice, especially understanding that probably a lot of us here are based in Europe at the moment. So I'd be very interested to hear your thoughts about that. It's not directed to anyone specifically, but maybe the organizers of the conference could say something to that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think you're raising very valuable and valid questions. I agree that yoga practice can and should also be a subject of research, and it is the case for you who is working on modern yoga movements. As valid a point as it is for us that we are dealing with pre-modern traditions that we are also not propagating with our research, but which of course we are very open to critically question. The question of decolonization is, of course, also an important one. And I don't want to go into this matter too far, but and answer by my personal approach. I think that in the colonial context, a lot of stereotypes about yoga were developed. In this early Orientalist setting, and a huge amount of that scholarship that was there produced was then uncritically adopted also in Indian as the final truth, and then now continues to be used in order to create a Hindu identity. So by contributing to research on pre-modern South Asia from a historical and philological perspective, it's also possible to improve upon the results of early research, and also clearly prove on the basis of text that some of the narratives about the continuation of Indian culture, about 6,000 years of yoga, about the Vedic origin of yoga, and many other aspects can actually be criticized and questioned in a meaningful way. So that would be my contribution to decolonizing yoga research from a historical and philological perspective. Dominic wants to add something or say something, please.
I was in a yoga class, and at the end of a very strenuous session, the teacher asked us to assume the shavasana, and I lay there quietly and experienced a huge flood of peace, very deep and unusual. I mean, this was not the kind of thing, it's not part of my daily life that I would be in such a state. It was an extraordinary, an unusual state of being that was unusually peaceful and big in some sense. Okay, so I don't need to read some text on the history of yoga to convince me that that was important and valuable for my life. I know it because I experienced it. So I also study the history of yoga, which is interesting. And sometimes I find things in the yoga tradition that really speak to me very personally. Other times the fellow holding his hand in the air for 40 years doesn't appeal to me. I'm not going to do that. So I think it's important, at least for me, to be grounded in myself and that I know what is valuable to me because I recognize it, and that the historical study that I undertake is interesting because I'm interested in the history of culture, the history of ideas, and parts of it I really respond to quite personally, other parts of it I don't. But I don't practice yoga because it's 5,000 years old. If somebody says to me, this posture is 5,000 years old, that doesn't make me think that it's therefore valuable. I believe people in India could be just as silly as people in Europe or people in North America. There are mistakes made by people everywhere. So the criterion for me is never to do with age, never to do with antiquity. My principal engagement as a scholar has been with the history of medicine in India, with Ayurveda. And it's the same in that field. I would never take a pill. I would never take a medication because it said on the bottle, this medication has been used for 5,000 years. No, I would look for some evidence that it helped people with headaches or stomach aches or whatever it was. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Yes, it appears to me that we are quite good in time. It's a few minutes past 8 o'clock, and I don't see any further hands. So I would like to thank all the participants in this discussion for their valuable contributions and for having, I think, really an interesting talk on the question of the relationship between scholarship and practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip.
Okay, so the next point of our program then will be the Satsang that is going to be given to us by Sukadev.
Yes. So we'll start with Om and meditation and some chanting, and then we do some peace chants and arati. So you're all welcome to stay with us, to have some practice, not Hatha Yoga practice, but of Raja and Bhakti Yoga practice. We will start by sitting in a nice, comfortable sitting position. And we'll repeat Om 3 times to harmonize body, mind, and spirit, and to prepare our mind for the meditative state. Om. Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Sharavana Bhavaya Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Gum Gobhyo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya. Om Adi Shaktye Namaha. Check your posture. The first step, asana. Back nice and straight. Jaws relaxed, eyes relaxed. Gentle smile. Second step, pranayama for meditation. Breathe a few times deeply with your abdomen. Inhale for 3 to 4 seconds. Abdomen in, out. Exhale, abdomen in. Inhale, abdomen out. Exhale, abdomen in. Third step, pratyahara, retreat of the senses and putting the mind into a meditative state. You can imagine when you inhale that light enters your system. And when you exhale, exhale compassion and love. Inhale light and energy. Exhale compassion and love. If you have your own meditation technique, then use your own meditation technique as dharana, concentration, which then can lead to dhyana, the meditative state, and eventually to samadhi. A simple meditation technique could consist of concentrate your mind on the point between the eyebrows, trikuti. Let your breath now flow naturally or gently. And repeat the mantra Om when you inhale, Om when you exhale. And feel the vibration of the Om in the point between the eyebrows or the middle of your forehead. Repeat the Om and feel this pulsation in what is called the third eye, point between the eyebrows or middle of the forehead. And maybe you see some lights, small light or a pulsating light or radiant light. If any other thoughts come, imagine you send these thoughts to this trikuti between the eyebrows, middle of your forehead. And then they are transformed into pure energy, pulsating light and Om. Let go of everything else. And let the Om, the light, the pulsation, capture your whole attention, bringing you to a state of relaxation, joy, and inspiration. Silence. 15-minute silence.